The flame ceremony has been fermented for another day, and the information about it, just like the Cake Island incident, under the operation headed by Morgans, has spread all over the world in an instant at an extremely crazy and terrifying speed. Countless newspaper offices are working overtime and working hard to add more publications and printing under the condition that the world newspaper is the mainstay. But even so, newspapers from all over the world are out of stock as soon as they come out. No other, it's just because of the news this time, the audience is too high. That is the new generation of the four emperors and the famous heir general. The country it manages is a famous country that has been famous for a long time in the world. Just because it is an illegal country that is not a world government, the level of information in the world is less. Coupled with the reason of the daughter country, which also has a man's dreamland, there was a feast evening news about the Flame Festival event, which completely surpassed the best-selling record of Charlotte Linlin's first tea party. As a selling point, I also know that the world is curious about Wano. So in the newspapers is all kinds of eye-catching headlines to drive the direction of attention in the world situation. The 6 regions of the main island each have different seasonal characteristics, and are very distinctive tourist attractions. New World is a big grain exporting country. The origin of the rich border has changed since the Flying Generals capped off. Fire Festival. Wanokuna's annual feast. Wanokuna's strength is finally revealed. What a rich competition reward. Flying General Promise. Specially crafted famous sword. Eudemon's devil fruit. Strength at the level of a great swordsman. Hidden for 100 years, the strongest Logia's thunder fruit reappears, a monster who is only 13 years old. Combined with each title, it is equipped with high-definition pictures taken on the screen. Then use the copywriting to refine the content, so as to attract the attention of other newspapers and at the same time better pass on the content. It also led to the popularity of this issue of the newspaper, and the above-mentioned situation of continuous reprinting appeared. Driven by the news of the world, just like the combat power of the respective imperial regiments, Moda's General Yudingfan has gained a lot of fame because of this. Coupled with the local strength and rewards shown in the competition, everyone can see more clearly what Wano has, which is indeed the powerful foundation of the emperor who sits on the sea. All of a sudden, the sea boiled. Although it was not the case of a major war, the relevant reports of Wano also aroused widespread discussions around the world. Rather, the response was even more intense because it was relevant to life. It's a great country, and it's also a food-rich country. I was born there, so I don't have to worry about hunger anymore. It's just an illegal country, and sooner or later it will be captured by marine or other pirates. The geisha in there are pretty good. They are all very eye-catching. By the way, why is there no report about the daughter country? I'm still looking forward to it. Hey, really, is that kid so lucky? That's a top-notch Logia, and he has the same ability as the 3 marine monsters. Compared to this, that flying general is really strong. That is a phantom beast that is rarer than Logia. It is too willing to be so willing to use it as a reward for the conference. It's decided. No matter how difficult it is, I will join Wano. Various emotions such as envy and jealousy have arisen one after another all over the world due to the spread of newspapers. The most important impact is not only the understanding of Wano and the combat power of the imperial court, but also aroused many people's longing for this country. Some are because of the national conditions, some are because of strength, and some are because of the generosity shown by Moda at the conference. In the 4 seas, somewhere in a remote country, a man in a dark green coat covering his whole body was looking at the newspaper about Wano in his hand from the window of a high platform. Behind him stood a tall man with a dark purple explosive hairstyle and wearing women's clothing. That was the famous Shemale king, Emporio Ivankov, who was also a friend of Drago, who was wearing a green cloak in front of him and one of the first members of the Revolutionary Army. Dorag, if you're interested, you might as well go directly to Wano. Ivankov said that as a good friend, he knows what the other party will care about when he sees this newspaper, especially the border. Wano, a few years ago, was still a poor and backward closed country, but now it is because of the heir general, and it may have some inspiration, ideological enlightenment and change for Dorag who wants to reform. Just as Ivankov guessed, Drago nodded and said, "Indeed, I have to find a time and pay a special visit to Wano. There is a way for Wano to change, Moda so Gao Min Shang. There is also Guillaume's decision to leave Marine and join Moda's camp, He wants to have a better understanding of it. Following his thought, the direction of the wind suddenly changed, and it began to change direction, blowing in the direction of Wano-kuni. In the first half of the Grand Line, in a hunter bar, a man with a huge knife stepped in from outside, calming down the noisy environment. This is a bar dedicated to pirate hunters, and those who are capable will get everyone's attention. If the strength is superb, it is unavoidable that other people want to chat with each other. But the man in front of him was indeed of great strength, but because of the horrible actions he left behind at sea, no one dared to speak to him. Pirate hunters often take the heads of pirates to Marines to ask for rewards, and they have a good relationship with Marines. But this man named Dracul Mihawk in front of him is not only a pirate, he even dares to hunt Marines. He even earned the title of Marine Hunter in this Grand Line. Naturally, no one would dare to come forward to have a relationship with him. Mihawk didn't care about the quiet atmosphere, or rather he liked it even more. In the eyes of everyone, he walked to the bar alone, and then he suddenly noticed something. The eagle-like pupils looked directly at him. The hunter who was stared at by this gaze suddenly felt that he was exposed without any cover, and was immediately shocked. Step back in fear. Ignoring the other party, Mihawk stepped forward, all the while keeping his eyes on the newspaper on the desktop, the headline with the words, "Great Swordsman," in it. Events unfold around the world, and naval headquarters, too. The only difference is that in the Marine Marshal's office, the information learned is far more than that in the flame ceremony. To shirk his need to work and create a space to be alone, Sengoku just took out the phone bug that was ringing in his arms. As he expected, not long after, the phone bug rang again. Sengoku picked up the phone bug, and after a while, a voice came from the receiver. "Mini fruit. Big senbei." The other party took Sengoku's signal, and then said again, "It's me." Hearing this, Sengoku's voice continued to sound just now, "Rosinante. How are you doing these days? I haven't heard from you for a while. I am very worried about you." Corazon tightened his hand holding the microphone slightly, and explained while feeling warm in his heart. "Recently, I participated in the Wano-kuni Flame Festival with Doflamingo together with 4 other cadres. This is the news that has been heatedly discussed in the world in recent days. Naturally, Sengoku has visited it many times, that is, he is satisfied with Wano-kuna's environment and feels palpitations about the country's combat power. In particular, the thunder fruit that has been hidden for 100 years reappears, and it still matches a girl with extremely high talent. Every time he reads this, he feels extremely regretful, why such talented and fruitful people don't appear in their marine. What I want to say this time is that Doflamingo participated in the action between the 4 emperors. Rosinante's words brought Sengoku back to his thoughts. He also knew this through the information from the world government. Doflamingo exchanged snow fruit for this reward, and the secrecy was very high. So these days, Sengoku has been waiting for Luo Shinnen's report. What Doflamingo is involved in is an incredible situation in every sense, and it is definitely an important task that can change the new world pattern. Hearing this, Sengoku's expression turned serious. "Say it." After confirming that there were no outsiders around again, Corazon continued. "Doflamingo will be in charge of the man-made devil fruit produced by Wano-kuni. It is mainly the transaction and delivery link in this industrial chain. The first batch will be shipped to Kaido in half a year." Puff. The tea that Sengoku hadn't had time to swallow was sprayed all over the table, and he immediately put the microphone next to his mouth with a look of horror. "Are you sure it's true?" "It's true. It's the information he shared with us when he came back. As for the man-made devil fruit, we haven't seen it with our own eyes, but it shouldn't be fake." After a while, Sengoku, who had been silent for a while, continued to ask, "How much do you know about man-made devil fruit?" "It seems to be zone in general, and there are certain side effects. I don't know more specifically," Rosinante explained, and then spoke his mind. "Doflamingo will deliver this first batch himself, and I can figure out his route, and then first can let Marine intercept it halfway." "No, it's a big risk to do so." Sengoku Fu refused without hesitation. Even after figuring out the route of Doflamingo, the crane has always had a hard time catching the flexible Doflamingo. Especially after this revelation, Rosinante will be at great risk under that investigation. What's more, this is only the first batch at the beginning. Hearing this, Corazon didn't speak, quietly waiting for Sengoku's reply. "Rosinante, you can continue to maintain the status quo,
and then report to me the specific time of delivery. Kaido will have our people infiltrate. Currently, the priority is to find out the situation of this man-made devil fruit, understand? After hearing the answer from the other party and giving instructions to pay attention to safety, the phone bug hangs up in Sengoku's hands. Rubbing the forehead with some headaches, Sengoku immediately took out the phone bug that was connected to the top, and began to convey the information that should not be underestimated to the 5 elders who were connected. As a result, as Sengoku said, since a dedicated industrial chain has been formed, the world government naturally pays special attention to this product of change in the new era. But before that, how effective it is, as well as side effects, can be experimented with Beast's pirates. If it is acceptable to the world government, they don't mind getting involved in the industry chain afterwards. After all, whether it's arms deals or seastone processed products, one of Wanokuna's big buyers in a sense is the world government. As long as it is beneficial to the world government, trading with pirates will not make them feel ashamed. As for Kaido, he still doesn't know that the man-made devil fruit news has been leaked. The Beast's pirates, at the moment, are still worried that their captain is in an unstable period of rage. In the center of a certain island in New World, where Kaido is located in the base camp area, the sound of violent anger is heard from time to time. Moda, that guy, that's Laozi's son. When did he become that bastard? And that brat Yamato, with Laozi's blood flowing through his body, actually insisted that he would fight Laozi as Moda's side. Boom. With a roar, the table was directly reduced to crumbs under the sound of Kaido venting. After learning that Yamato has thunder fruit, Kaido failed to ask Moda, and this situation came into being. Moda, who is far away in Wano, will not be used to Kaido. If we were afraid at the beginning, now Moda is higher than Kaido in terms of strength or status. What's more, I still occupy a dominant position in the smile industry chain. Kaido's anger, and dare not really contradict himself. It is true that Song Neng has become a catharsis of incompetence and rage. Good performance. Moda rubbed Yamato's shaking white hair. How could I leave Moda's side because of that stinky old man? Yamato contentedly enjoyed the warmth from above his head. In various senses, under his influence, he has become the highest status in Yamato's heart. Not to mention that Kaido had previously bargained with Yamato as a commodity in the phone bug, but deliberately let Yamato listen to him verbatim. In one fell swoop, Yamato's sense of recognition of the beasts has been minimized, and now it is for himself. The father is kind and the son is filial. In this time and space, there is still a father. In order for Yamato to realize the idea of AA fighting Kaido with his own hands, Moda understands and respects the wishes of others.
Naturally, as a teacher, it is incumbent to start a class teaching it about Conqueror's Haki.
That is, after Conqueror's Haki's awakening, a higher level of pressure, Conqueror's winding. Conqueror's entanglement. Moda is honestly not very familiar with it. After all, it is not as extensive as the two-color Haki. To understand it, is to literally control Conquerors as you control armament Haki, and control it in more detail. As far as my perception at the time was concerned, it was just that under Kaido's constant tyrannical attack, I refined and sublimated my Conqueror's Haki little by little until I completely mastered it. This is different from emission, which has a higher level armed color. It is necessary to continuously collide between kings, and the overlord bearing can grow. So, under the blood donation dandelion that man surely prepared in advance, Moda carried out the simple and rough teaching like teacher Kaido, fully immersed in the experience of the power of Conqueror's Haki, and deepened understanding and perception through continuous blows. In terms of improving the strength of this, even if it is Yamato and Hancock who are treasures in Moda's eyes, he will not have any idea of softening his hands, and he will follow the concept of strict teachers to produce excellent apprentices. It's a big deal to comfort the two girls after the event. Anyway, they are more or less enjoying it. It's just that for this higher level battle, after a period of time, the two women are still in the groping stage. As for this, Moda is not in a hurry. It is only a matter of time before Yamato and Hancock master this skill. Nowadays, whether it is Moda or Wano, the most indispensable thing is the development of time. Just like now, his strength is getting closer and closer to the peak, and without a strong opponent to fight, his progress has been suspended. With strength and background no longer a problem, Moda's greater development direction now is to wait for his own power to slowly penetrate into the world, and to use the memory perspective of innate advantages. Grab those almanacs of opportunities and deeds. So, Moda in its current state seems to correspond to the classic saying, I have fought battles all my life, so can't I enjoy it? Therefore, in addition to teaching the two women's tyranny and Kuina swordsmanship in batches every day, the rest of the time is spent in various senses of enjoyment, especially at night. In addition to Mrs. Shi, who still has a charming charm, Natasha has become Moda's latest upstart. There is a saying, Moda has become a little addicted to the effect of slippery fruit recently. Although it is not in the state of enjoyment like a forest of wine and meat, it is also in a state of luxury. The only difference is that he doesn't have to worry about drinking, sex and other issues that will make him addicted. After all, with his current physique, even after several nights of continuous fighting, he will not show any signs of exhaustion, and he has never even used the finale recovery, Shadow. The children who don't really want to share with others, have asked Man Shuili to ask for it. It was also because of the absolute suppression of combat power that sometimes the chief executive, who felt that the general's style needed to be restrained, directly entered a state of being speechless. Both are generals, he is not a wimp like Kurozumi Orochi and Hara Kazuki's in action. In a country where Wano-kuni is still thriving, even if he wanders around the streets all day long like Kurozumi Orochi, there will not be any negative wind, whether it is accurate or not, and it will drive the flow of people and funds that day. In addition to exploring the origin of life, Moda is now waiting for the opportunity and enjoying the moment of life, from swimming pool parties, retainer banquets, going out to sea, fishing, enjoying the new music played by Maria and Rihei for him, etc. Just a few months after the Fire Festival, and only a short period of time before the Sea Circle calendar 1507, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, Dorag, visited Wano-kuni by sneaking in. Using the fruit ability, he easily crossed the Vortex Sea area and the weapon barrier built on the giant waterfall, and reached the border of Wano-kuni. However, he had just arrived not far from Julie's harbor, and immediately felt the attack. While evading, Drago couldn't help but wonder in his heart, he used his knowledge to avoid the detectors on the barriers, how could he still be discovered? But he didn't think about it for long, he quickly raised his hand and said, I don't mean anything malicious, I just want to visit Air General Moda. As he said that, Drago looked up, but the heart of the person who saw the attack couldn't help but stagnate. Your Excellency Koshiro. Mr. Dorag. The other party obviously also noticed the shouting Drago, showing a look of surprise. Why are you here? In East Blue, the two have communicated several times, and the relationship is not bad. So seeing the other party, Koshiro also put away the weapon in his hand. I specially found time to come here because of the issue of the fire ceremony. Dorag said seriously, for the idea I told you about. At this moment, in the city, appreciating Maria and Raiha's new song created by himself again, Moda picked up the wine glass, but before he drank it, he walked into Lilith from the outside, as if he had received some information, and stepped into Moda's ear, said in a low voice. Moda's expression brightened for a moment, and he ordered, let him come to me. As soon as these words came out, the wonderful music played stopped. It doesn't matter, it's just an outsider who may reach a cooperative relationship. As my retainers, you don't have to avoid it. Hearing this, the two women each smiled sweetly, and the beautiful and brisk notes played again. The capital of flowers, in front of the general's gate. Drago, who was wearing a green robe, no longer used his ability to lurk in, but was led by the commissioner to board here under the report of Koshiro. But it was discovered that a tall and slender figure had been waiting at the gate leading to the interior for a long time. That is the former Marine Vice Admiral Gion, who is now joining the Moda camp. Drago naturally also discovered that this former colleague is still wearing the sexy dress in his memory, the only difference is that he no longer wears the marine cape. Drago looked at Gion, and couldn't help but speak first. I've been wanting to talk to you since the time you left Marine to follow the Air Admiral. What do you want to talk about? Gion asked. The original Marine Vice Admiral, and the son of the hero Garp, will be able to sit firmly in the powerful strength of Marine Admiral in the future, but he left Marine suddenly. Gion used to be very concerned about the cause of the incident. Drago was full of inquiring earnestness. Is your motivation for leaving Marine caused by the Frevens that the world has concealed? Ah, that's right. Gion nodded and said, after the Frevens incident, I realized that the world needs to change, especially the rule of the world government cannot bring real peace to the world. Hearing this, Drago's expression changed, and he was actually a little happy to meet people of the same way. You were right. You who chose to leave Marine have seen through the darkness in the background of justice. First left Marine with this purpose in mind. In this world, there is oppression. Starting from the aloof celestial dragons, oppression of nobles, oppression of civilians, hypocritical justice is piled up by sacrificing countless people on the sea. The celestial dragons, the source of evil, and the brutal world government are all existences that must be dealt with for the peace of the world. So for the purpose, I built a team called the Revolutionary Army, which means to liberate those oppressed countries and liberate the true source of the sea that binds it. Drago looked at Gion with some impassioned expression and explained it meaningfully. I think exactly the same as you, but I will not join the Revolutionary Army you formed. Gion also said seriously, my original intention and purpose now is to support Moda and fulfill the justice in my heart. I know, and I can understand. Drago nodded, but felt a little pity. He knew how powerful Gion, whom the chief of staff Crane favored, was so powerful. If he joined his revolutionary army, he would definitely be the strongest support today. He didn't hold out much hope at first. After all, besides the Black Widow's tattoo, under the hot pants, there are two more symbolic words, M and D, which are the new logo of Wano. Even Moda, also for her purpose. They were all colleagues from the past, and they all left the sojourn where justice was in their hearts at the beginning. After the conversation so far, it was only after the goals in each other's hearts became firmer that Gion turned and left, and the maid who had been waiting for a long time in the city took him to the general's place. It was not until reaching the room where beautiful music was heard from time to time that Dorag finally saw the ultimate goal to visit at this time. Air General A. Moda. And him, lying in the arms of a beautiful girl about 6 meters tall, enjoying the beautiful music, enjoying soft and delicate massages on all parts of his body, as well as dessert tea poured to his mouth from time to time. Drago couldn't help but hesitate. It was the Moda in front of him, which was very different from the Mingjun in his impression, who transformed the ancient country into a powerful country in today's world. However, with the experience of traveling around the world these years, Drago quickly dispelled the impolite words in his heart. No matter what Moda is at the moment, what he hears and sees all the way from Qiwuhai to the capital of flowers is a wise man in front of him. Credit. You are Drago. Moda continued to lie in Maria's arms, looking at the man in front of him. Once we hear, we see, the leader of the Revolutionary Army. Do you know the Revolutionary Army? Drago was surprised. Their Revolutionary Army is still in the latent stage, and they haven't caused much disturbance in the world. Of course, after all, you are turning away from Marine just like Gion, so you should also be dissatisfied with the world government behind Marine. For this reason, I will naturally pay more attention to your news. Hearing Moda's words, Drago had no doubts about him. After all, the man in front of him was the Emperor of the New World, and he also had a lot of resources in the New World. It was not difficult to find out some information about himself. At the same time, although he learned the general information from Gion and the more definite information from Moda's words, Dorag said frankly. I came here this time to represent the Revolutionary Army, and I intend to form a cooperative transaction with your forces, General. Whether it is a big food country today or a large seastone munitions player among the underground forces, it is of great significance to the Revolutionary Army that is currently developing. The enemy's enemy is a friend. Whether it's food, munitions, seastone, it's not a problem to open a secret transportation route to you, and there can also be appropriate discounts in terms of price. But even if you are a friend, you should know the prerequisite for reciprocation, that is, you have to pay. Moda didn't refuse, but he didn't directly agree either. It's true that he wanted to use the Revolutionary Army to cause trouble for the world government, but it was impossible to be a good person and help the other party unconditionally. The general, I don't know what you need in return, Drago asked. The special opening of secret transportation is already a great help, and considering the cash-strappedness of the Revolutionary Army not long after it was established, Drago still handed over the conditions to Moda for clarification. It's very simple. Our goal is to pull the world government down from its high position, but it is impossible to achieve peace for everyone in this world that is dominated by power. Necessary managers are indispensable, otherwise the world government will be overthrown, and the riots in the troubled world will be the ultimate belonging of this sea. Moda looked at Drago, and the meaning was obvious. If the celestial dragons and the world government are successfully pulled down, I will become the administrator. Drago became silent. His ultimate goal was to lift the oppression brought to the world by the world government and celestial dragons. Just like his hometown, Goa Kingdom, known as the most beautiful East Blue, is one of the microcosms of the world. And who knows, after Moda becomes a manager, will it develop into another kind of oppression? But indeed, there is a saying that is very good, in this sea where strength can judge all things, the manager is very important. Dorag's thinking. Moda also patiently waited quietly, in the room. Only the sun and the sun turned into soft music like drizzle. If you became the ruler of the world, what would you do? Drago stared straight at Moda, his eyes turned into a look of serious inquiry again. This has changed from the meaning of cooperation to a change in concept. Moda looked into the eyes of Drago calmly, and said with high spirits, "Isn't the current Wano-kuni the best criterion for judging?" After the discussion, Dorag left the direct phone bug and left General City. Also because of Moda's speech, he plans to live in Wano-kuni temporarily for a period of time, so as to understand the country under this management in a deeper level. Among them, the conditions for the transaction amount still need to be spent will not change under the premise that it is only possible to capture the world government. Although strength can suppress everything, after all, the ultimate goal is to be a behemoth that has stood in the world for 800 years so far. With Moda's greed and cautious character, it is natural to achieve the greatest victory. For this reason, Moda will pay attention to what can be used and useful to him. Whether it is a revolutionist, or those future opportunities that are waiting for now. Sensing the other party's departure, Hyori also stopped playing the music in his hand, murmured unswervingly, and said with a cute and aggrieved look, "That guy still wants to think about it. It is a matter of course for Master Moda to become a manager. Indeed, the greatest person in power in this world is Master Moda." Maria also slowly stretched her body so that Moda in her arms could feel better taken care of, and she nodded in agreement. Especially the high-spirited look before, even if she didn't see it because of the angle of view, it didn't affect the change of momentum Maria felt, and she showed a somewhat obsessed expression. Everyone has different ideas. Since that guy also has such a big goal, he will naturally consider it carefully. Anyway, the addition of a revolutionary army is just to make my future goals more convenient. Realizing that his back suddenly became as soft as a sofa, Moda also leaned up from sitting up straight, and looked up at Maria's beautiful eyes. "You have also begun to grow slowly, Maria." Maria used her ability to turn the sofa into a massage chair, and at the same time, Keita was delighted. "It can't be better if it can satisfy you." Ba. Ba. A burst of characteristic laughter came from outside the door, and then the floating Perona flew in from the wall in the form of a ghost. "Master Moda, I'm here to play with you, woohoo." In broad daylight, "Maria, what are you doing?" Perona, who worked hard early and finished a day of training at the military base, was full of joy. But when he saw the situation of Moda in the house, he immediately stared and shouted loudly. "Well, this is a new skill recently developed by a geisha who is exclusive to adults," Maria said with a smile. "What kind of technique is this?" Perona floated in the air dissatisfied, and after going around a few times, she felt a little out of place and planned to leave. "Really, I still went to play with Nami and Luo." Hearing this, Moda looked at Perona and said, "Did Luo finish his training at the military base?" "It's impossible, he's still in elementary school for swordsmanship, and he's been crying secretly because he failed to challenge Kuina recently. He. Perona covered her mouth and chuckled mockingly. "It's really cute." Maria also chuckled, then thought of something, and continued, "Speaking of which, it's time for their siblings to go to Dr. Hobak for a re-examination. Although there is suppression of the healing fruit, every month, Luo and Lami need to go to Hobako for a review. These are still necessary until the op fruit comes out. Although the swordsmanship still needs to be improved, Dr. Qiwuhai often praised Luo's medical skills. Perhaps when he grows up, he will become a famous doctor in our country." Hyori also participated in the topic. Although that's the case. The other party's strengths, Perona gave a certain degree of recognition. "When the matching fruit is available, Luo will undergo a radical change," Moda said. Recently, North Blue, under the operation of the Shadow Guard, has gradually stabilized its footsteps. Perhaps it does not need the timing as in the original book, and the op fruit can be obtained in advance. Looking at Perona, Moda continued to order, "By the way, when you are looking for them to play, call Robin for me." Master Moda really, Just let me run errands if you don't play with me. Okay. Go. I'll play with you next time. Perona pursed her mouth, and then left very obediently, leaving through the wall. After a while, Robin, who was developing Wawa's ability, was called to Moda. Without any other instructions, he threw the phone bug in front of Robin, and Moda said, "This is the phone bug of the leader of the Revolutionary Army, Drago." The leader of the Revolutionary Army. After Robin took the phone bug, she couldn't help being curious. She was no stranger to this person. After all, as the general manager, she knew and had access to a huge amount of information. That's right. Moda nodded, and then explained his intentions. Go and have a good talk with him. The Revolutionary Army is meant to seek the foundation of development in the 4 seas, and the area involved is quite wide, and his goal is to have 100 years of blank history. Very concerned. So, he will be very happy to find those historical texts for you. This is a gift. Moda allows Robin to explore his historical dream without affecting his obligation as a manager. Involuntarily, taking the Dorag phone bug as a reward, Robin put it in his arms. Even the scene where Moda is at the moment, she can let herself accept it. Obviously a little excited and happy, but only with a smile on his face, Robin grew up more and more towards the sexy and glamorous style he remembered. Thinking of something, Moda said at the same time, "There is something, you can convey it to Ren. Let the Shadow Guard pay attention to a Murloc named Fisher Tiger in. If he appears near Mariejois, just tell me his information." Although somewhat curious, Moda's order is unconditional. Robin quickly took the lead and started to arrange things with flower fruit. The upcoming Sea Circle calendar, 1507, is also going to be a crazy year. Fisher Tiger, that completed the feat of climbing the red line with bare hands and making a big fuss in the holy land of Mariejois. Although I don't know what opportunity the opponent took to break into the holy land safely, but for Moda, this is undoubtedly an opportunity. If this incident can intervene, not only Poseidon Shirahoshi of the Fishmen Island, but also Mariejois, he can also arrange something. A few days later, maybe there was an episode of Robin, or maybe I saw everything that Wano-kuni has developed today. With a certain answer in his mind, Dorag began to return to the base of the Revolutionary Army. Although Moda will become a manager instead of the world government, I still have opinions. But now, the most important thing is to completely wipe out the root of corruption and oppression. So before that, the secret bridge that the revolutionaries had started with Wano-kuni, with Robin in charge, started. With the help of the Revolutionaries Foundation from all over the world, the distribution of shadow guards also began to slowly spread from the North Blue to the other 3 major regions. All in all, just waiting for the fermentation of time. A month later, under Doflamingo's admiring gaze, the man-made demon finally matured and began to transport towards Kaido's sea area. Because no one dared to provoke this famous sea monster with the Kaido flag, and with the personal escort of Doflamingo, the goods were delivered to the vicinity of the Vodka Kingdom without hindrance. As everyone knows, the government spies who seized the opportunity to transport them have already ambushed in the battalion of the Kaido formation to observe. The first batch of tyrants and unlucky smilers were born in full view. 18 fruits, 5 people failed, and all expressions except smiles were taken away. The remaining 12 people had physical changes and successively obtained different zone abilities such as cats, tigers, cows, and sheep. The failure rate accounted for nearly 1/3, but Kaido was very satisfied with seeing the first batch of animal fruit legions, and he was more concerned about this transaction. He was still cursing Moda for abducting his son a few months ago, but after the first batch of smiles came to fruition, he simply ignored these things. And the Doflamingo and world government spies who also witnessed the changes with their own eyes have different moods. Doflamingo couldn't help twitching his fingers excitedly. Under the deal that will expand in the future, he can already predict what a huge wave of benefits will come to him. He couldn't wait any longer. Although the government spies were not excited, they were greatly shocked. They quickly recorded the various changes, side effects, and various numerical physical abilities that were displayed later, and only waited for the report afterwards. Finally, after another week, the Marine and world government received comprehensive information about the Fruit of Smile. There is no doubt that this product of the new era has forced the Supreme Conference to be held again for this purpose. What do you think? The artificial fruit this time. I don't know if the scientific research team that Moda took away at that time still has these abilities. It's really hidden. Obviously there is something that enhances strength, but Moda actually sells it. It's probably a side effect of that smile. He's showing his status as a Mingjun in the country, so he should be very concerned about this. The side effect is just to take away the expression, but the success can have a real zone ability, which is obviously worth planning. After reading the intelligence information, the 5 elders began to discuss with each other. As far as the world government is concerned, the number of candidates it needs to train is just such a small side effect, and it is the same as none for them. What's more, the success rate accounts for more than half, which is already an exciting value. So, how to implement the artificial fruit industry chain? They are all smart people. They want to participate more than plunder, especially knowing that the number of this industrial chain will only increase in the future. What do you guys think of Vegapunk developing artificial fruit? That group of scientific research teams can research it, and the scientist who claims to surpass human intelligence for 500 years, Vegapunk, can easily realize it. No, the main direction now is to develop the Seraphim project, and this plan cannot be affected by other factors to delay time, but don't forget our real purpose of building Shichibukai. Moda's scientific research team has been around for several years now. Even if we can be faster than them, there is no need for us to waste time here. The sooner the justice plan of Seraphim, the better. That's right. The mechanical consciousness of the human body is a more advanced concept than artificial fruits, especially other high-precision values such as blessing abilities, so there is no need to add extra details. The 5 elders with the highest power in their respective fields had another heated discussion about this. In the end, the blonde 5 elders made a final decision. The Seraph project cannot be delayed. Our goal is to complete the project when the prophesied time comes. It is only a dozen years away. Besides, with only money, we can save development time, cost, construction, and industrial chain issues. 5 elders, who is holding the first-generation ghost, said, "It is true that there is no problem with only money, but how can we participate in it, just with their secret and cautious appearance?" Let's talk to Moda first. The blonde 5 elders said something that surprised the rest of the 4. After all, they all felt that it would be more appropriate to start with Doflamingo or Kaido, especially the former, who was once one of the celestial dragons. Since Moda chooses to sell the artificial fruit, he is a person who cares about the interests, so he might as well use this to find out first, and finally get a clear statement. Money? But one of the most indispensable things in the world government. As for cooperating with pirates, they have no burden. After all, in terms of arms and seastone, world government has been cooperating with Kaido recently. After hearing the speech of the blonde 5 elders, the other 4 were silent for a while. All of them were born in a situation that was not impossible. So, at the end of the summit meeting, a new task was conveyed to the CP agency. Time also completely passed the Sea Circle calendar 1506, and came to 1507, when Mariejois will suffer. Except for Moda, no one knows that a Murloc slave who escaped from celestial dragons will set off the biggest wave of this year's era. And the Shadow Guard buried in the Fishmen Island noticed that after Tiger, the former leader of Murloc Street, returned, Moda knew that his plan had begun. This time, he wanted to cause an incident that far surpassed the liberation of slaves. Let the Fishmen Island and the world government completely move towards the maximization of contradictions. One of the most famous islands in the New World, the Fishmen Island. Located in the Dragon Palace city where the royal family is located. Are you serious, Tiger? Looking at the leader of the former Murloc Street who was full of vicissitudes in front of him, King Neptune looked serious. Tiger didn't hide it, he lifted his clothes directly, showing a mark on his chest. Seeing this, Princess Pooh and Princess Otahime covered their mouths in surprise. That sigil, without a doubt, is the Celestial Dragon's special, Hoof of the Celestial Dragon, for slaves. In an instant, Princess Otahime understood why Tiger wanted to board Mariejois to free the slaves. She heard Tiger's inner voice, which was full of anger and great mourning. The slaves there are living a hellish life, struggling with abuse and survival every day. During the 3 years I was there, I have fully seen the madness of human beings and celestial dragons. So, King Neptune, Princess Otahime, remove me from the Fishmen Island. Tiger showed a determined look. This is what I have to do now, I don't want to involve the country I love so much. With the consent of Princess Otahime, Neptune also acquiesced to this. Thus, the news that the Murloc Tiger was kicked out of the country spread throughout the island in a few days. He himself has already left the Fishmen Island, swimming towards the conspicuous red line. At the same time, the shadow guards ambushing on the Fishmen Island had already informed Robin of Tiger's departure from the Fishmen Island. Lord Moda, Tiger has left the Fishmen Island. Hearing the report from the shadow guard, Moda nodded, and before waiting for the next order, another phone bug was presented by Robin. Know how to grasp your own mind in advance. The corners of Moda's mouth raised. Robin has really become a more and more capable manager. With a look of praise, Moda pressed the phone button, and was immediately hung up after dialing. It was not until a while later that the other party dialed again. Moda Admiral A. When the voice came, the phone bug with a male appearance came from a woman's voice. Moda said unsurprisingly, "The plan is about to start, are you ready, Katrine Demai?" "Of course, Admiral." There was a burst of laughter from the phone worm, and then the phone worm showed an evil expression. "I have stayed for more than half a year for this, and everything is ready. Just wait for that mermaid to do it. It's been a game." "Very well, you will become the captain of the Shadow Guard, who is the most important part of my plan." Sensing the other party's confidence, Moda hung up the phone and waited for the big news in a few days. For Katrine, he is very relieved. After all, she has graduated perfectly from the Shadow Guard training, and has actually mastered the ability of Zoana CC Fruta Phantom Beasta Section 9 Tails Fox form. 2 days later, Moda paid more attention. With firm belief, Fisher Tiger finally climbed to the top of the red line at midnight and came to the holy land of Mariejois. Looking at this magnificent area, Tiger quietly touched the 2 guards at the door with the anger in his heart. In the past 3 years, he knew best that this is the residence of the nobles of the world, and it has been safe for a long time, but it is easier for these guards to relax their vigilance at night when there is no one in the land. Coupled with the situation he inquired before leaving, those CP agencies and army powerhouses need to go to the huge bridge to organize the unrest. So these days are the time when Tiger should not miss it, and the government's defenses are weakest. Murloc Karate hit the water. With a unique trick, Tiger turned the moisture in the air into water droplets, and slammed at the guards. Very easily, 2 bullet-like drops of water killed the 4 guards at the gate without even sending out any alarm. At first, with rising anger and determination, he walked towards the place where he was imprisoned for 3 years, the slave yard for nobles and celestial dragons later. The hatred between slaves and slaves can be said to be the most released at the moment of liberation, especially when Tiger shows off the hooves of the Tianxiang dragon. 1 change into 10, 10 changes into 100, and the vigorous rescue of slaves begins. In the end, the group's passionate and constant venting roar finally led to the exposure of this operation, and the sound of sirens spread throughout Mariejois. All the guards began to assemble, but compared with the slaves, they have no advantage in numbers at all, not to mention that this is a slave farm for celestial dragons to play, except for rare species. Most of them have powerful combat slaves. For a while, the accompanying guards were completely unable to withstand the rioting slave group. As a result, the fire was completely ignited in this slave field, representing the anger and liberation of all slaves. It's really crazy. Using moonwalk to stand on the top of the first floor, the man in guard clothing looked at the raging fire, and the slaves who kept fleeing to lift the car and said truthfully. Then came another thought. Everything is exactly as the adult budgeted. It's really fascinating, whether it's strength or strategy. The man couldn't help showing an obsessed look, licked the corners of his mouth, and then walked towards the celestial dragon's residence that was mainly under protection. As a guard, he entered the area harmoniously, and walked towards the celestial dragon's field that had been selected. Then, under no one's perspective, the guard's appearance was twisted and changed in a strange way, and he transformed into the culprit of Mariejois' disturbance tonight, the mermaid tiger. For the first time in her life, she was about to personally kill the high gods, and even become one of them. Just thinking about it, at this moment Tiger's strong-looking face showed a mysterious flush of excitement. Ah, really thinking about it, it's more or less unbearable. I don't know how those pigs will behave when they die. Catherine talked to herself. Half a year of servant life, she knew everything around her. As the footsteps continued to get faster and faster, until they entered the area of the phone bug's perspective, the smile turned into a ferocious angry face, and the Murloc karate attack directly destroyed them all. Mariejois was breached and the slave farms were completely burned to the ground. This is news that the world government cannot hide. Especially when a large number of slaves escaped from Mariejois. This living propagator has already attacked the prestige of the world government thoroughly in the Sabodi archipelago. 2 days later, although there had already been some rumors at sea, through Morgan's powerful network, the ins and outs of all the events, as well as the detailed information of the incident, turned into a newspaper of the biggest event of the year and spread throughout the sea. Climbing the 10,000-meter red line with bare hands, broke into the holy land of Mariejois, liberated all the slaves, and burned down the representative slave field. Not only that, but also made a crazy act of killing the sky. Under the fire that no one knew about, all the slaves were resisting and running away. But Tiger turned back and sneaked into the key area guarded by heavy guards in a superb way, killed the celestial dragons who had enslaved him, and then walked away. This crazy move made Murloc Tiger directly offer a reward for the first time, with a direct reward of 865 million Baileys. Under this circumstance, a team called the Sun Pirates, formed by Murlocs, began to run for their lives at sea. The Murloc Tiger became a household name all over the world. This guy, is he quite a hero who defies authority? Finally someone can stand up, even though it's a Murloc monster. My child should be liberated too. Will she be in the Sabodi archipelago? I'm going to pick her up. On the islands all over the world, there were cheers from many people. Except for the nobles, few people felt sad for the Mariejois incident. On the sea, there are not only pirates, but also the celestial dragons of the world's nobles who can make most people loathe and fear. Doflamingo's experience is the epitome of anger hated by the celestial dragons. Mermaid Island, Dragon Palace City. King Neptune and Princess Otahime were worried about this. It would be fine if the slaves were liberated, but killing the celestial dragons would not be the only problem that Tiger could solve with his withdrawal from the Fishmen Island. This is how to do. Neptune looked at Princess Otahime. He could already foresee how the world government would suppress the Fishmen Island after the incident subsides, not to mention that they are just below the Mariejois sea area, which is his wife's dream, might as well end it. Princess Otahime was a little silent, and she didn't expect Tiger to be so angry that he would do such a thing, so she could only shake her head and say, I don't know, just see if I can prepare more heavenly gold. To appease the wrath of the world government. If I knew it earlier, I shouldn't have let Tiger do this. Think about it, too. How could it be possible to limit the anger of freeing slaves after being abused by slaves for a long time? Neptune was a little angry, because this incident had risen to the point where it could affect the safety of the country. Princess Otahime was speechless and could only wonder in her heart. Obviously, what she heard at the time was that Tiger didn't have such thoughts. On the escaped Sun Pirates, after learning about the incident, Tiger's younger brothers who continued to follow from Murloc Street, after seeing the incident in the newspaper, praised their elder brother's great achievements proudly. The future overlord of East Blue in the original book, the Murloc Dragon, patted the newspaper, and said proudly, Brother Tiger, you are really amazing. You keep that female celestial dragons from killing. That is want the world to know what a great move you've made. The rest of the group especially nodded. They were able to follow Tiger on this ship, and most of them were people who hated humans, especially the celestial dragons. I think this matter is a bit inappropriate. Murloc Jinbei said. Although it is a great event, it is better to kill the grass and roots, so that people know that Big Brother Tiger did it, and Marine will definitely not let it go. Hugh may also send Admiral, and even those monsters as substitutes. What kind of monster? We Murlocs are born to rule over humans, not to mention, this sea is our home field. The evil dragon said dismissively. After 2 discussions, someone in the group noticed Tiger's extremely gloomy face. He stared at the newspaper, and said with suppressed anger, I didn't kill that bastard. This news is fake. Tiger suddenly thought of how to do this. He was being chased and killed, so it didn't matter how dangerous he was, but what would his country do if he killed the celestial dragons? But he can't go back to Mermaid Island now, otherwise, the trouble will be even bigger. Just as he expected. Comer Street's wife, Palazzo Roll Jabbert, was having a fit of rage at this time. His husband was killed by Tiger the Murloc, and he was one of the witnesses. As for why it didn't have the same result as Comer Street. It seemed that because of the screams from Luoer Yabe Palace, fearing that other guards would be attracted, and at the same time, in order to avenge the main culprit, Tiger the Murloc left without daring to stay any longer. When the guards arrived, there were only the terrified Roller Jabe Palace holding a pistol, and Saint Comer, who was dying with a fist pierced through his chest. Coupled with the residual information of the damaged phone bug equipment, this statement was naturally confirmed, and then it was recorded in the newspaper by Morgans, who inquired about the news. "You useless things." The woman, who was graceful and luxurious, but with a ferocious face at the moment, cursed. "I was almost killed by a disgusting inferior race, so why don't you just be buried with that fellow Comer?" As he said that, Luo Uriabe kicked the CPO, who was kneeling on the ground. They didn't move at all, but they didn't dare to resist. Although it was the guards' dereliction of duty that day, but the patriarch was killed, their celestial dragon's shields were naturally also responsible, especially after Luo Uriabe Palace became the new patriarch. Song could accept the other party's anger at this moment. "Master Luo Uriabe Palace, please calm down. The culprit, the Murloc, has already been hunted down by Marine, and it will not be long before he will be brought before you for execution." Hearing this, Luo Uriabe kicked him fiercely again. "Do you want that kind of filthy blood to dirty my hands?" Looking at the several CPOs kneeling on the ground, she felt a little joy in her heart, and she felt very refreshed, but the expression on her face was still angry and ferocious. "I don't want such disgusting things as Murlocs. Don't those inferior races come from Mermaid Island? I want the mermaids on that island, and I want them to pay the price. I want them all to be enslaved by me." Facing the furious Luo Uriabe Palace, the CPO was dismissed and could only say respectfully before leaving, "We will convey your wishes." After the spies left, the Luo Uriabe Palace returned to the empty room. The newly recruited servants, when they saw the angry appearance of Luo Uriabe Palace, they didn't dare to bother them. After returning to the room, the graceful and luxurious celestial dragons immediately calmed down, let down their anger. It's really a comfortable environment. Looking at the gigantic room from the Luo Uriabe Palace, various pendants and precious decorations are placed in every corner of the room. The life of celestial dragons is really a luxury, but I have to get used to it slowly. Luo Uriabe laughed, and then took out a very concealed phone bug, and after pressing the button on the top of his head, the surrounding immediately entered an environment that could not be monitored. Immediately afterwards, she started to make calls with this special phone bug. After connecting, the phone bug immediately changed into Moda's appearance. The phone bug smiled, as if he was very satisfied with the actions of Rorjabi Palace, that is, Catherine Demai this time. "It seems that your operation has been successfully completed. MMHHHH. She let out a weird laugh. "How long will it take, Admiral's calculation? All developments are in line with expectations, and only Admiral, you are such a god-like existence. Can you have the capital to sit on the supreme throne in the future?" It was an indescribable exaggeration. Even before the Murloc tiger had no signs of escaping, Moda had already made her a servant of this palace, and was familiar with the methods, tone and various behaviors of Luo Uriabe Palace. With innate fruit ability skills, he perfectly masters the abilities of imitation, change, detection and so on from the Shadow Guard. As long as she didn't come into contact with Seastone, or she took the initiative to cancel it, based on her current status as the Patriarch, the possibility of being exposed is basically zero. Very good. Then start to control everything in this family. Your current family, and your own family, are different from those pigs who are just waiting to die. They have some powers that can involve the important affairs of the world government. What do you want? Grasp this point well. Moda pointed out. It's not just that the CP organization of the world government can infiltrate other areas, he also wants to insert his own pawns in this highest power zone to build a Mariejois Shadow Guard organization. After hanging up the phone, he waved the newspaper in his hand, and Moda smiled. Kozuki was leaning in his arms all the time, his slender jade legs were close to Moda, as if he was infected by Moda's mood at the moment. He couldn't help but smile. It's a good thing you can calculate like that. It really makes me Katrine takes the place of a celestial dragon's. She is obviously younger than her own age, and she is even more Kozuki. But staying with her, she is like falling into a honeypot, wrapped in all kinds of sweetness, making people fascinated by it. I don't want to resist at all. Maybe, let her now choose between Udian and Moda, she will hesitate, but in the end she will be more willing to choose Moda. Rather than calculation, it is more appropriate to say resourcefulness. Moda smiled, stretched out one hand to embrace Kozuki, and at the same time embraced another intellectual manager beside him. Robin blushed, but there was no resistance. The timid who starves to death, the courage to die of hunger. If you want to win this world, If you don't dare to take risks, it will be difficult to achieve. And didn't we succeed? I am looking forward to what level Katrine will reach and what kind of surprises she will give me. What about the Fishmen Island? According to you, the world government will start to put pressure on them. Kozuki asked, and she was only sorry for the island that was affected by Moda's strategy. What sympathy. All in all, as long as the man in front of him climbs to the top, he can usher in a bright future. For this reason, the sacrifice is worthwhile. Let them feel the malice of the world government's pressure first, and wait until Whitebeard can't help, which is the best time to make a move. Under Moda's patient waiting, due to the power and reprimand of the Royal Jade Palace, other celestial dragons who joined it were also affected. Although it was impossible to make all the mermaids of the Fishmen Island their slaves, the world government still put pressure on the Fishmen Island. Not only to appease the anger of the celestial dragons that have already formed a group, but also the result of the world government being slapped in the face all over the world, and there must be someone to bear for it. For this reason, the situation on the Fishmen Island has deteriorated rapidly, and it has become so bad that as long as any race on this island appears in the sea, they will be notified and arrested by various people. Go straight back to the original era of great pirates without the threat of the Whitebeard banner. After all, as long as it is not going to New World, it is difficult for Whitebeard's fame to reach the 4 seas in the first half of the paradise. There is even a saying in the sea that the Fishmen Island will be nominated to be kicked out of the member countries at the next World Summit. Regarding this statement, the world government neither denies nor affirms it. Time. Just like this, several months have passed. In the capital of flowers, Moda welcomed a few rare visitors. The white clothes, the face is equipped with a strange mask, and the whole tone is the same as the white flag background behind the world government. Also as the shield organization behind Celestial Dragon's CPO. General Moda, meeting for the first time. The leading man bowed and saluted. Although his voice was indifferent and without any expression, his behavior was full of respect. You lackeys of the world government, what's the point of coming to me? Here in your world government should be the opposite. Hearing the sarcasm in Moda's words, the 3 of them didn't take any action, as if they recognized their identities as lackeys. General Moda joked, there are no permanent enemies, but there are absolute interests. The leading CPO then said, this time we are representing the world government, and we want to reach some business cooperation with you. Especially as the active party this time, without waiting for Moda to speak, the CPO then added, there is a sale about Wanakuna's seastone arms. And man-made devil fruit. Hearing this, Moda immediately put on a gloomy expression, and the Emperor's aura came down, pressing down on the person in front of him. This level of conquerors? I couldn't help being surprised. The 3 people, who had experienced many battles, were directly forced by this momentum to kneel on the ground. General. Please don't get me wrong. With the momentum of a heavy burden on his body, the CPO said, this is all the information we have investigated from other forces. As soon as these words came out, the pressure did not decrease but increased, causing the 3 of them to groan in pain, but they continued to grit their teeth and explain. Doflamingo, we have spies inside. Hearing this, Moda whispered Doflamingo's name in a cold voice, and the terrifying aura pressing on the 3 of them just disappeared. This angry phenomenon, of course, is just a faux pas. But Moda really had to sigh in his heart. In order to achieve his goal, even the spies that Marine placed with great difficulty, these guys can report them without any scruples. Really omnipotent CP0 features. But it doesn't matter, anyway, the information has been conveyed to the world government, and Rosinante's role in Moda will come to an end. Since the incident is known to you, you should also understand that these meanings and values, not to mention Kaido's appetite, will others share it? Moda said. We also heard about this from Doflamingo. Since you want to abandon it, then simply and thoroughly, the leading CP0 said. The industrial chain on your side will continue to expand with time, and other trading channels will be developed in the future. Our world government hopes to be one of them. Second buyer. Of course, the price will be twice the value of Kaido of the Beasts. They found out that the price of man-made devil fruits is more than half of the real devil fruits, twice, which is almost the basic benefit of real devil fruits. Although it is expensive, it can guarantee the value of price without market, not to mention that world government has a strong background of investing money for profit. Not enough. Moda raised his hand and waved it, and said with a lack of interest. If the world government only has this amount of weight, you can go home. The three CPS looked at each other in blank dismay. Kaido is like this. There is no reason why Moda would not be moved by this. But Moda didn't refuse this matter immediately. Obviously there is still a chance, so naturally, they must facilitate this transaction. Among the three, CP0 on the left thought of something, and then said, the previous incident about punk hazard, the world government can. Before he finished speaking, he was directly blasted out by an invisible force, crashed into the wall abruptly, and then collapsed. When the two of them were stunned, and they realized that Moda, who was still sitting on the main seat, had already stood in front of them at some time. The punk hazard incident, long before you guys used the newspapers to set me up, it's been offset, isn't it? Of course not. Punk hazard, in various senses, is an island directly under the government, not to mention the core scientific research force, which is all gathered by Moda. But now, under the gaze of Moda, the CPO organization dare not mention punk hazard anymore. It's decided, if you don't have something to show, you all stay here. Since there is no absolute benefit, it is also possible to return to a normal hostile relationship. The floor under his feet began to tremble in fear. Countless hard-to-see particles, wind direction, began to float in an orderly manner, slowly forming an encircling circle, enveloping the three of them. I don't know if it is because of these reasons, the CP0s began to feel breathless. What other conditions does General Moda need? We can try our best to meet them within our capabilities. It's over if you say so early. Moda sneered inwardly, but said with an unchanged expression, I need 10 large warships. Hearing that, the CPO hesitated. As the most important symbol of the world government's combat power, the marine is the most important means of transportation for sailing on the sea, and its equipment and development level can definitely be ranked among the top in the world. A special sea stone that prevents other sea beasts from attacking. The giant battleship can still guarantee strong flexibility even in the case of a large size. It is also full of endurance and has a very high lower limit. 10 ships, if equipped with a powerful upper limit of ammunition, can completely create military equipment no less than Buster Call. Not to mention, the cost of 10 large warships is predictable. It is good. After a moment of silence, the CPO nodded. Compared with the long-term benefits brought by man-made devil fruit. Again, from the perspective of the world government, they can consider the benefits that can be bought with money. As for Moda, you can earn no loss. It not only achieves the purpose of transporting man-made devil fruit to the world government as a hidden mine, but also harvests the top warship configuration of the world government, saving time and cost. After the deal was concluded, the two CP0s were freed, leaving behind the queen of the phone bug, and returned with her comatose companion behind her. After everyone had left, Moda dialed the phone number of Dover Mingshu. As the main big shot of the Don Quixote family at present, naturally, the phone bug was connected by the other party immediately. Hey, good afternoon, General Moda. Doflamingo said hello first with a smile. I don't know what to order. With the delivery of the second batch of smiles, as the middleman between Kaido and Moda, Doflamingo has made a lot of money in various senses, and the idea of AA entering the new world has become more and more clear. Because of your disadvantage, I'm not in a good mood right now, Joker. Moda said Doflamingo's new name in the underground forces, but his tone was not very friendly. When Doflamingo heard this, the expression on his hippie's smile faded immediately. His expression was both puzzled and nervous, and he said, please specify. It may be one of my short-sighted subordinates who caused trouble and dared not report it to me. I really don't know which of your subordinates made the devil fruit incident known to the world government, but they directly pointed out that there are their spies inside you. Crackling. Under Doflamingo's force, he directly scratched the armrest of the chair. His face was in disbelief, and the veins on both sides of the sunglasses burst out one after another. I have already agreed to the sale and purchase with the world government. You need to be responsible for the second transaction line. Moda said bluntly. Of course, Kaido's anger will be borne by you, and you also need to give me an explanation for the problems caused by you. Immediately, Doflamingo was in a cold sweat. Doflamingo didn't hang up the bug until he gave Moda a satisfactory guarantee. He leaned on his seat, and in the office room where he was the only one, there was only the crisp sound of his fingers tapping on the desktop. Thinking about it carefully, whether it is to appease Kaido's anger or Moda's confession, paying more is within the acceptable range of Doflamingo. but his family betrayed him, which he absolutely did not allow.